Hello and welcome to wrestling and welcome to this review of WWE Crown Jewel, the Saudi Arabia show that they like to do sort of twice a year, I guess now. That's a little bit controversial, has been over the years, but they're rolling on with it and they're doing it, so I guess we're gonna have to talk about it. Things kicked off with the Battle Royale, the winner of which would face AJ Styles for his US title later on in the pay-per-view. I always like to note who gets entrances with these Battle Royales. So interestingly, we saw R-Truth, Buddy Murphy, Rowan and Andrade. Andrade was my pick actually for the predictions contest, which I actually won. So I've got the trophy. I don't know where it is right now, but it's mine. There's some nonsense from Nowhere Jose with Rowan and Harper, a little bit of dancing in the ring, and Harper kind of looks like he's about to join in, but then he clotheslines him and eliminates him, and it's just Rowan and Harper pretty much for the rest of the Battle Royale. They're just flinging people out left and right. Cesaro also goes to do some nonsense with them, and he meets the same fate. So like I say, they just dominate for the rest of the Battle Royale. As the Sings are leaving, Truth rolls up Samil and R-Truth wins the 24/7 championship back. I think he's on like the 40th time he's won it or something crazy. The rest of the locker room come out, run after him, and it was a nice moment away from the Battle Royale actually to have a little bit of shenanigans with the 24/7. Rowan and Harper are left with Umberto and they're just destroying him. As they go to eliminate him, Rowan sneakily tries to eliminate his friend Harper, and Umberto rolls back through the underside of the rope, and he sends Rowan over the top together with Harper. So Umberto is the winner of the Battle Royale, and he will go on to face AJ Styles later on in the night for the US Championship. Okay, the main show kicked off with, interestingly, Brock Lesnar versus Cain Velasquez for the WWE Championship. I think Brock's just trying to make like a new main event by having the opening match be the Brock Lesnar match. It's the second time it's happened in 6 months or so. Yeah, they go at it like an MMA match, which I guess was kind of to be expected because this is like a UFC rematch. So they're going around it for like a minute or so, working each other, kind of like a UFC match. And then Velasquez catches Lesnar with some kicks, and it drops Lesnar to the ground. And he pounces on him for the kind of ground pound thing that they do in UFC, and it looks like Velasquez is going to win the WWE Championship, but Lesnar manages to reverse into the Kimura lock, and Velasquez taps, and it was like 2 minutes long. All this build-up for Cain Velasquez versus Brock Lesnar, and they ended it so quickly. Very, very strange booking. I didn't actually see the tap because of the camera angle. But later on they do show you the replay, and it does show you that Cain did tap out. Maybe he should have like held in the lock a little bit longer and not tapped out. I don't know. It's just really weird. Brock won't let go of the lock. So thank goodness here comes Rey Mysterio, who accompanied Cain Velasquez to the ring edge with his one arm and all, because he's got a dodgy arm at the minute. Comes in with a chair. But Lesnar, he F5s him and then he tosses him out of the ring. Lesnar goes at Cain Velasquez with that steel chair, but Rey comes back in again with another chair, and he manages to kind of like see him off, gets a few chair shots in, and Lesnar decides to sort of scamper off. But what a weird thing. I mean, this was one of the matches that you centered this pay-per-view around. You open it up with it and it finishes in 2 minutes. And it was all this hype, you know. Lesnar beat Kofi Kingston for that lovely run that Kofi Kingston had with the WWE Championship. To have Kofi Kingston lose it and then do this with the championship seems really short-sighted on WWE's part. I don't know what they were thinking here with this one. Very strange. Following this, we had the tag turmoil, and we start with Ziggler and Rude versus the Lucha House Party. The tag turmoil is an elimination style tag match, so these guys start, and once someone is knocked out, another team will come down. So there's a ref distraction, and Rude knocks out the Luchas with a glorious DDT. I think it was coming from a super kick as well. I think Ziggler hit a super kick into the glorious DDT, so that was quite nice. Hawkins and Ryder are the next team out there. They're in hot, maybe a little bit too hot because they kind of botched their double team move, but they're not there too long because they get hit with a spine buster zigzag combination, and they're straight back to the locker room. Then we get heavy machinery. Ziggler and Rude are having the best of it. They keep Tucker in for a long time, so Otis is desperately reaching for the tag. Eventually Tucker creates some room and he gets the tag to Otis, and the crowd are loving it. They're absolutely loving Otis being in the ring, although he doesn't quite manage to do the caterpillar. Rude manages to get done over with the compactor, and heavy machinery advance. Then it's a new day. Yes, it is. Minus Woods because he's out injured, so it's Big E and Kofi Kingston. And I actually thought that they would go with New Day here because of what happened with Kofi, and with Woods being injured, I thought they would give some sort of celebration to Kofi following that disastrous end to his title reign. They were my pick here for this match. When they get in, Tucker knocks Big E over, and he kind of does like a limbo type maneuver. He goes on, he's on his back. He must really do his quads in. He's not quite touching the mat, and he's like bent over. It was so impressive, and the crowd agree. They were clapping like a standing ovation. We get some tags, and finally we see the caterpillar. Kofi manages to fight back with a Trouble in Paradise. Big E is tagged in, and he manages to set up for the midnight hour, and they knock out heavy machinery. So following this, we get B Team, go, go, go. They don't last long at all as the big ending ends Axel. Revival follow them, and they turn things round on New Day, as you might expect. A team with a little bit more prestige on them. Kofi manages to land an SOS, but Dawson is straight in and on him to stop any further action. There's double team and look to do the shot machine, but Big E makes it back in. He takes out Wilder. Kofi manages to roll up, and the Smackdown champs are out. So my pick are going strong, but the Revival decided to take their frustrations out on the New Day, and they do some damage for this match, and they have a match tonight on Smackdown for the championship. So nice little bit of storytelling there, and they sort of soften them up for both instances. Kofi Kingston eats a shatter machine. The OC the next team out, and they go for Magic Killer, but Kofi wriggles free. They take Big E out, then head back for Kofi, finally landing that Magic Killer, and the New Day are done. So my team that I picked are out. The last team in are Viking Raiders, and it's really hard hitting stuff between these two teams. A lot of big guys going at it, and maybe a preview of stuff to come in the Raw Tag Division. Hopefully that would be nice to see. Ivar prevents a Magic Killer, but the OC dispatch of him, and then they return to Eric to finish the job. And the best tag team in the world are the OC. Interesting, I thought they would go out of these two teams. I thought they would go with the Raiders. Don't know why they went with OC, but I am starting to think they might be doing a bit more with factions in WWE. So hopefully the OC, of course, with AJ Styles, will start maybe dominating the scene. Now it's time for the hometown hero, Mansoor versus Cesaro. It goes the way I thought, but Mansoor is all over Cesaro, and big cheers from the crowd. He goes for a dive through the ropes, but Cesaro absolutely levels him with an uppercut. I think this was a really good match, and unfortunately it was around this point in the match where, because I was watching the pay-per-view on the VOD, not live, my picture and sound went out of sync, so I had to do a lot of this match sort of out of sync, which really kind of affected my enjoyment of the match. But the network really has been pretty crap, hasn't it, since they updated it. Mansoor rallies and hits a dive over the top rope. Cesaro is on jelly legs. Mansoor hits a beautiful tornado DDT, but kicks out at 2 from Cesaro. Mansoor hits a swinging neckbreaker following on from some cheap shots from Cesaro, but Cesaro manages to get his leg on the ropes, stopping the pin. Lots of false finishes, lots of close calls, and submissions, and they really kind of drew you in with this match, because going into it, you know, we all expected that Mansoor was going to win the match, but they did a really effective job of making you think that maybe not. And I think a lot of that is to do with Cesaro being such a pro. But yes, Mansoor really did well as well. The crowd was so hot for this. Cesaro then goes for a gut wrench from the top rope, but Mansoor kind of flips it round into a powerbomb off the top turnbuckle. It looked unbelievable and a really hard landing for Cesaro. Mansoor then lands a moonsault and he wins the match. If you watch the moonsault, Mansoor actually overshoots it a little bit and Cesaro shuffles into place. That was very interesting to see. But a very good match, probably match of the night actually, taking it all round. But yeah, the Saudi boy wins. He gives a rousing speech to the crowd. Yay, Saudi Arabia. So next up we got another sort of early entry really for one of the other main attractions. Tyson versus Braun. I thought this would maybe go on last since the Brock one went on first, but no, it's kind of in the middle of the pay-per-view. So massive entrance for Tyson Fury, like so many fireworks. There was a lot of fireworks throughout the night, but so many for Tyson Fury here. A really grand entrance for him. He comes out in traditional Saudi wear, and that really had me laughing. He looked ridiculous. Not to say that that's a ridiculous look on anybody, it just looked ridiculous on him. Because you're sort of used to seeing him in like dodgy suits and stuff. Anyway, the match starts, and it's sort of like a bunch of tie-up, collar elbow tie-ups and stuff like that. Braun goes for some punches, but Fury manages to dodge, showing off his counter abilities. Fury then comes in with some wrestling moves, and to be fair, I thought he did alright. You know, he's not had long to get used to it. Coming from a totally different world. I thought he looked alright. The only moment I wasn't too sure of was a little bit later on. I'll speak about that. Braun then starts to take over and he dominates, which was interesting again because, you know, Tyson Fury's a champion in boxing and I didn't think he'd want to show any weakness, but he actually did to Braun here. Braun was dominating until Tyson manages to dodge a charge in the corner, which is the traditional way that these things get overturned with Braun, and he drives himself into the turnbuckle. Braun then clocks Tyson on the outside of the ring, decides to go for shoulder charges, but Fury lands a drive-by, which actually looked alright. I quite enjoyed that. Tyson, this is the point that I was wanting to mention, just what I was saying a little earlier on. He goes for a pin, and it's the first kind of moment where you realise he really isn't used to being in a wrestling ring. He kind of pins Braun, and then he lifts off him and then hooks his leg. It was really awkward, but the ref keeps counting, and it nearly accidentally ended up being a 3 count. So that was a little bit dodgy. He then mimics the Undertaker later on, which I was a bit like, what are you doing? He did the little sit-up thing. Didn't like that. Don't do that, Tyson. Braun manages to finally get in some shoulder charges. I think he does 2 round the ring. He rolls Tyson Fury back into the ring. I think Braun celebrated a little bit here, and then as he turns to get back into the ring, Tyson clocks him with a big right, and Strowman is on jelly legs, wobbling all over. He can't get back in the ring, and he loses via count out. For some reason, Michael Cole said it was a TKO. It's not, it was a count out. I think, all said and done, this is probably the best way for this to go, because Braun didn't get pinned or submitted or anything like that. He loses via count out. He loses to what is Tyson's main asset, a big right, and it's a 10 count, kind of like in boxing. So this kind of works. It's just a shame that Braun keeps getting put in these predicaments, because he should be in that main event picture. He should be in the title picture, and whenever he's kind of in and amongst that, they kind of stop him and give him some sort of sideshow thing to do. Anyway, he's not having it after the match. Braun, he gets his heat back on Fury, runs in and does a running power slam. And again, well done to Tyson Fury for letting Braun sort of go over after the match. But Tyson is then celebrating in the ring post-match. So, better than I thought it would be, to be fair. I thought it was going to be rubbish. It wasn't great, but it was alright. And we cut to backstage, and we've got R-Truth hiding from the roster when the Sings stop him. He comes out of the door, and the Sings are there waiting for him. He runs into the door, trying to escape them. He says, always have an escape plan. He knocks himself out on the door, and I think it's Samir this time wins the 24/7 championship. And I really like the thing that the Sings are doing. They kind of like crab walk off, and it's kind of like the yes chant that they do. I really like it. It's funny. We get the US Championship match with AJ Styles and Humberto. The OC, of course, won the World Cup tag team thing earlier on. They walk out with their trophy side by side with AJ Styles. The match is okay, pretty dizzying stuff from Humberto. He's bouncing all over the ropes. It's very disorientating for AJ Styles. The crowd are chanting that AJ sucks. So he does the suck it gesture to them, which I was thinking like, ooh, that's a bit dodgy to do in Saudi. So the connotations of what that actually means. And then he takes down Carrillo and he says, "Who sucks now?" Later on, Carrillo hurts his knee. AJ locks in the calf crusher on that leg. Humberto manages to survive. It isn't for long because a phenomenal forearm is in his future and AJ retains via that method. Time for the ladies match, probably the most interesting match on the card now since it got announced. It comes with a caveat though. Both of the ladies are wearing these like full black bodysuits and massive baggy t-shirts on them. I guess this was the compromise that was met with the Saudi officials. I felt a little bit sorry for them. I was thinking about the heat that it must have been in Saudi and to be wearing all that stuff. They have a very technical match, lots of mat wrestling. This is awesome chants from the crowd, so it's good to see that it was over with the crowd, that the ladies were finally having a match here in Saudi. A very historic moment really. Natty hits a lariat and then follows it up with a sharpshooter, making Lacey tap, but the two ladies sort of share the celebrations, and Corey Graves states, "This is bigger than a victory, you know exactly what I mean." The crowd very up to it. The girls go out and they celebrate with lots of young women and mothers, and it's all very nice. A very touching moment actually from something that a lot of people disagree with these Saudi shows, but this could affect some positive change, I guess, especially for those young women, and maybe in that nation things could change eventually through these kind of things happening. We get the kind of Survivor Series style match following this. It's Team Flair versus Team Hogan. Ric Flair gave a fantastic promo in the kickoff, by the way. He did like his full Ric Flair spiel with Byron Saxton. Very funny. Everyone gets full entrances, which was interesting. I didn't think they would do that. So naturally, it took about 20 minutes for everyone to come out and for this match to get going. Hulk Hogan is followed out by Jimmy Hart, which I wasn't sure why Hogan needed a manager when Hogan was the manager. Very weird. So Flair's team is the heel team and Hogan's team is the face team, sort of mimicking, I guess, their rivalry. Most of the match is focused actually on Rusev and Bobby Lashley. While people are in the ring, they're gesturing to each other across the ring. Possibly is the biggest storyline going on within this match, but it added something to this, I guess. Ali gets ragdolled around for a little while whilst he's in, and then he manages to escape. Tags in Ricochet, who turns the table, but not for very long. And that was kind of the pattern in the match, was the Babyface team were getting the hot tags, but then they were getting beaten down for a while. Ricochet needs to make a tag. He manages to tag in Reigns, and he clears every member of that team out, looking like Hulk Hogan himself. Then we get what we always do in these matches. Everyone's doing their finishes or attempting to do their finishes. Ends with Flair's team standing over Reigns. Rusev makes it back in. He clears the others off before squaring up to Bobby Lashley. They go at it, eventually stumbling out of the ring, and Reigns hits a big Superman punch to Bobby Lashley, sends him out the ring as well, and then the big dog flies, clears everyone. There's bodies just laid everywhere outside of the ring. It's crazy. The fans are digging it that are on the entranceway. They're really loving it, especially the kids. Reigns brings Randy Orton back into the ring. He goes for that Superman punch, but Randy lands an RKO. Reigns kicks out at like 2.9. It was such a close call. Orton lines up to do the punt, which we haven't seen in forever, but Gable, or Shorty G as he's now called, manages to stop it. The ref is distracted, so Ali and Ricochet go after Randy. He hits an RKO on Ali, but he does that thing where he plants his hands down to stop the RKO actually working. He and Ricochet then take out Randy Orton and the rest of the team. Reigns hits a spear and Team Hogan wins it. I thought it would finish with Hogan in the ring with Real American playing, but it didn't, so that was interesting. Big celebrations from the face team. Rusev's having really good fun, you can see whilst he's there. It maybe went on a little bit too long, but some good stuff in there. Rollins and The Fiend are the final match for the Universal Belt. Now, I went into it thinking they're not going to give it to Fiend because he's on Smackdown. That would mean that both belts are on Smackdown. So we both picked Rollins for the win here. Anyway, the match is under them red lights again, which I don't think really went over well last time they did it, so interesting to see that they did it again. You can hear Bray laughing as the match goes on. I thought that was really good. Going to the audience, Seth lands a stomp on the outside, but the Fiend is straight back to his feet. It really follows similarly to the Hell in a Cell match, because this one cannot be stopped, although the Hell in a Cell match really shouldn't have been either. The Fiend goes to put Seth through the barricade on the outside, but he evades, so he goes through there, does the Fiend. Rollins sets up some tables. Does a couple of suicide dives. Two tables are set up on top of each other. That's what he's done. He then takes a chair to the Fiend. Then he gets a sledgehammer. Just basically following on from what we saw before. Mandible Claw is locked in. Seth manages to escape with the help of that sledgehammer. They're now on the announce table, and there's a funny moment here with Graves and Cole. They're trying to get out of the way, but they can't because there's wires in the way. It's really funny hearing them like try and scamper off. We get a running senton from the Fiend, but Rollins rolls out of the way. He goes for the cover, but it's only a 1 count, so he's not really taking any punishment here. Rollins manages to set the Fiend on the other announce table. He climbs up for a splash, but the Fiend's up there with him in a matter of seconds. He pushes Seth off into the 2 tables. Quite a nasty bump actually, but Seth managed to avoid getting hurt. Fiend then goes and takes a protective mat off of outside of the ring. Goes to do a Sister Abigail onto the exposed floor, but Seth escapes. He hits the Fiend with some steel steps and hits a stomp on the exposed floor, but it's only a 2 count. So again, for my liking, there's too many finishes being done here. Too much no selling from the Fiend. Makes a little bit sense for him to outlast moves. Again, I bring it back to the Demon with Finn Balor, who when he wrestles as the Demon, there's no difference. Whereas Bray Wyatt here is wrestling as the Fiend. There's a little bit of difference. He's got a little bit more stamina, I guess, which I kind of like. But then at the moment, we're up to like, what, 2 stomps? You can maybe say, yeah, fair enough. But then they go up to the top of the ramp. They get all the way to the stage. Rollins just hits a flurry of stomps and kicks. He does about 8, something like 8. And you're thinking, now it's getting silly. This is just ridiculous now. The Fiend gets closer and closer to the edge of the stage. And eventually, Rollins kicks him off into like a production equipment sort of stage area. Sparks are setting off, there's fire, everything's going off, and you think there's no way he's done, that's surely the end. Seth goes down to probably cover him, I guess, but some sparks set off, and Seth, you can hear shouting, I'm blind, a bit like from the Anchorman, I'm blind. And then the Fiend appears. He's not even affected by any of what's just happened. He locks in the Mandible Claw, he hits his Sister Abigail, and he wins the Universal Championship. So why didn't they just do this at Hell in a Cell? I don't understand. They could have just done this at Hell in a Cell. They didn't need to drag it out till now. So both titles are on Smackdown. Personally, I didn't like the match. It wasn't as bad as the Hell in a Cell one. Probably because I actually want the Fiend to win, and he should win. But there's too much no selling. It's too silly. It's not grounded in reality. And I know, like, you can say, well, wrestling isn't grounded in reality when there's like the dead man and things like this. But there's got to be a little bit of reality there. I'm happy that he won. I'm really intrigued to see what they do, because how can you have both of the big belts on SmackDown when Raw's a 3-hour show as well? That's so weird. I don't know if they'll announce some sort of thing like he can't take it to SmackDown. I don't know. But overall, Crown Jewel 2019, Saudi Arabia. It wasn't great. Again, it's a glorified house show. The Braun match with Fury was better than I expected, but still not great. I would say average. The Brock Lesnar match was awful. The Battle Royale was pretty standard again, average I would say. The Tag Turmoil was okay, not fantastic, probably average. The Mansoor match with Cesaro was great. I really enjoyed that one. I would say that was above average. The AJ Umberto match, okay, average. The ladies match, although it was an average match, it was a nice feeling, so I would say that tips it a little bit more into above average. And I would say that the Universal title match was probably just below average. So I think taking it all around, this pay-per-view would have to be a 5 out of 10 for me. I'm interested to see where they go with the Universal title picture. I'm interested to see if Cain Velasquez is even going to be in WWE anymore, what they're going to do there. It looked like they were setting up Rey and Brock again. Weird. That was just so weird after all the build-up and all the hype. And I'll be interested to see if Tyson Fury and Braun go to WrestleMania, because that was my feeling going into it, that this might go to WrestleMania. I suppose we'll see. I hope you've enjoyed my review, recap and results of Crown Jewel, and make sure to subscribe if you have, hit the like button, and we'll see you in the next video.